maybe I'll do a brief history of triangle sports on the North Carolina Tar Heels, how they went from a half away from winning the national championship and having an incredible march to remember to whatever this is that we're seeing with the Tar Heels right now. Like, I don't want to be alarmist, Wes, and you can maybe talk me off of this, but when you got a veteran group that ran it back like other Tar Heel veteran groups had done in the past, and the conversation coming out of your loss to Wake Forest is, if you don't want to be here, you can go ahead and quit. On February 7th, that's a wrap for me, man. This team ain't it. It ain't happening for them.
I thought the first 6 minutes last night were as puzzling a sequence of basketball from Carolina as I had seen all year. And, I mean, the first 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, they're playing well. They look like continuity is in. And then all of a sudden, I noticed, well, Caleb Love hadn't taken a shot yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed, wait, dead ball, timeout, Seth Trimble for Caleb Love in the lineup. And then, like in the first 10 minutes, I saw Armando Bacot spot up for 3 at the head of the circle. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Meanwhile, Wake Forest is conducting their own and one mixtape at the other end with Tyree Appleby.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at Wake Forest and going, Wake Forest, this is a group that, is kind of just, in the middle of the fray, so to speak, and now all of a sudden they look like, well, quite frankly, they look like the 82-win Bulls at times, or 72-win Bulls at times, I should say. And, next thing you know, I mean, Carolina's down, and just to show you how great the net is, Carolina ends up losing by, 7 or something? And the next thing you know, they only drop, 2 spots in the net, 4 spots in the net, Wake goes up 1. I mean, come on, what are we doing there? But it is a head-scratcher with Carolina, Joe. There's no getting around this now. This is 3 in a row with Clemson coming to the Smith Center on Saturday. And by the way, the Tigers have lost a couple here that they need to kind of get sorted out. So
it's the Miami game. It's the Miami game next Monday that I'd be more concerned with.
That's the one that I think. Look here now. I saw Miami live and in person on Saturday at Little John, and Dan and I were having the conversation earlier today here in Blacksburg. I'm not so sure Miami's not the best team in the ACC right now, and a lot of reasons. And oh, by the way, right behind Miami might be Pitt. Because Pitt played last night and did exactly what you're supposed to do when Louisville comes in your building. You did a demo job on somebody. You didn't you didn't let them hang around. You didn't do anything. Now, Saturday at Florida State, they got receipts from what happened a couple of weeks ago at the PITT, so we'll see. But right now, it is a Pitt, Miami, Virginia, and Clemson gets to decide Saturday in Chapel Hill how much they want to stay in the discussion, in my opinion.
Wes Durham joining us here on the Heaster Automotive Group Hotline. That's Joe Ovias. I'm Joe Giglio. Let's stick with the Tar Heels for a minute here, Wes. Do you see a path home for them where they could make a Final Four run? Is there a tweak that could be made? Is there a spark that could be found?
I mean, Giglio, from the standpoint of lineup and personnel, I mean, look, you're getting Bacot, and Washington is repping the minutes when Armando goes out. The Pete Nance combination, I think Leaky Black, is what Leaky Black is. He's a terrific perimeter defender who can get you some rebounds, but is he going to be a double-figure scorer for you every night? I don't know. The thing to me that is the most mysterious about Carolina, and the reason I'm not sure there's a path, is that Carolina needs those 3 guys, Love, Davis, and Bacot, to be fully engaged, plugged in, amplified, and the volume turned all the way up in order for them to make that kind of run. And in all honesty, how much have we seen that this year, let alone here recently, is my biggest concern, I think, with where Carolina is.
No, we haven't seen it. And I think the issue that Carolina has right now is that and it's easy to do. I get it, right? We the last thing we saw is how it's just going to be this continuation. But if you look at the larger sample size now of the three guys that you mentioned, Armando Bacot, RJ Davis, and Caleb Love, the consistency of the three is Armando Bacot is excellent at collecting stats. Armando Bacot, and it's not meant as a knock, Armando Bacot can really take over a game because he's so good at pulling down missed shots, getting to the line. Those things absolutely matter. It's the other two who have been the wildly inconsistent ones. And when you look at the larger sample size of 2021, Roy's last year, the majority of last year, after the inflection point in February, February 16th, and their loss to Pitt. So up until that point, and then this year without Brady Manick, it sounds harsh, but this is just who they are. They're okay. They're not a bad team. They're just okay, like everybody else is right now in the ACC, which gets to a larger point. The ACC is old school this season in that the teams are so bunched up, home court clearly matters. Clearly matters.
To the tune of 64% of the games in the ACC have been won by the home team.
I think it's a lot of fun this way, by the way. I think it's actually made for what I thought was going to be a not very compelling ACC season into a low-key compelling ACC season. But we couldn't admit that about Carolina. We couldn't put them in that group. We had to put Carolina in a different spot because I guess history? Is that why? Is history the reason why
we
put them in that spot?
Same reason that when the fall rolls around and Alabama loses to LSU and to Tennessee, we're supposed to still think Alabama deserves a college football playoff berth.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it. The brand names are pushed by the media. And, we're here, I'm not saying you got a shovel of dirt in your hand and Carolina's being lowered into the ground. But we're seriously concerned about Carolina's stability to have any kind of momentum at all when they host Duke at the end of the regular season and certainly when they go to Greensboro. Not that they're going to play on Tuesday in Greensboro, but, there was a good bit 2 months ago we thought that they would be a double bye given in Greensboro. And now the reality of it is I got a card here with 5 schools on it and their remaining schedules. And, Carolina factors into the 5, of which 4 will get a double bye. But of the teams not Clemson, Pitt, Virginia, Miami, NC State, I would take Duke and Wake Forest as the next candidates to be contending for the double bye before I get to Carolina at this point based on the track record. And I'm not trying to kill Carolina, but the same problems Carolina had early in the year still, to me, appear to be some of the same problems.
Yeah.
And that's not a good sign for anybody.
On the flip side of that, Wes, one of the teams last night that we saw was Wake Forest, who had their own struggles. But you see them starting to kind of come into their own with Appleby and Monsanto, the guards playing the way that they are. It does feel like Wake is solidifying their position in the NCAA tournament.
I think so, and I think like tonight the team we have here in Blacksburg has a chance to take another step to potentially find their way back out of consideration and potentially into that discussion, Joe. It just feels like that they're teams that are coming from the middle of the stack that want to make February runs because their tournament technically starts before the tournament starts, right? And I would certainly put Wake in that category. I would put Virginia Tech in that category.
Virginia Tech's going to get credit for not having Hunter Couture. They're going to be graded on a curve, right?
I would hope so.
From what we've seen from them and with him and without him,
Boston, to that degree, we ought to think of Boston College without Quentin Post, too, for that matter. But at the same time, Hunter Couture got hurt late in the first game against Boston College back in December and didn't come back until, a couple of weeks ago. And he's been terrific. But I think you have to look at Virginia Tech and Wake Forest as the two teams that have the firepower. What Steve Forbes has to be thinking today is we got to clean this up a little bit through the rest of the regular season because I don't need an El Cerrito in Greensboro to take me out of play for the NCAA tournament like last year in Brooklyn. That is the reality, I think, for where Wake Forest does not want to be.
Right.
And given kind of the metrics, and we all know the metrics aren't crazy about the Deacons, right? Nor their non-con. So you got to be able to push through a little bit about where Wake Forest might want to be before they get to Greensboro.
Virginia Tech's resume feels like a fever dream to me.
It is a weird one.
Did you beat Virginia? Yeah. Did you beat Carolina? Yeah. Did you beat Duke? Yeah. Well, what's the problem? Well, we haven't beaten anybody else.
Yeah.
You see,
what happened?
Lost to Syracuse, and we
Wes Durham joining us here on the OG. We'll close on this, Wes. We don't spend a lot of time talking about Syracuse basketball, but I guess Jim Boeheim
have to.
right. Jim Boeheim's new tactic to get us to talk about Syracuse basketball is to act a fool. Whether he's picking fights with Syracuse media or now wanting to pick fights with fellow ACC coaches. I don't want you to reveal names. I know you're super plugged in. You talk to coaches and things like that, but I was embarrassed for the league because of Jim Boeheim. How embarrassed was the league actually, though, when you would talk to some folks?
I think there are a lot of people that are really kind of like, really? I mean, you got your own deal going, man.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, he's got a guy. He's got some booster that's got like $1 million for
his
guys.
name is Adam Weitzman, and he sits at the table right next to him.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I'll see him next Tuesday night when Dan and I are there for State and Syracuse. Mm-hmm. And here's the truth, okay? We go to do a game with Syracuse. We had them a week ago Saturday against Virginia Tech, right? I mean, we don't have a lot of connection with Jim Boeheim in those visits. We don't seek a lot of connection. If he was available, that'd be fine. We're not going to push it, right? I mean, we get our material and our information about what Syracuse is. The man's coached 47 years. It's clearly stated he's in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. We know, yes, I'm well aware he lost 100-plus games to an NCAA violation that should give him 1,100 wins. But to flat out say something about an institution that is just not true is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And whether you're frustrated about your team or you're frustrated about the fact you didn't want to be in the league and all these other things, I just don't get it. And, yeah, I'm disappointed that it happened. I'm disappointed for the ACC. I'm more disappointed in and he's got no reason to give a flip about Wes Durham, okay? But I'm disappointed Jim Boeheim did it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And, look, Pete's a good reporter, and he let Boeheim talk. But I feel pretty confident that all the accusations made and all the apologies made afterward are going to feel kind of hollow given the way the season's gone and some of the things he's done.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, too. Are we not sitting around waiting on the next one? I mean, see, that's the other thing, too. Now the post game is overshadowing the game.
It is.
Because somebody's going – and Gilio knows better than all of us. Somebody's going to be sitting in the room saying, okay, let me see if I can get the Hall of Fame guy to ignite here in the postgame.
It might be us.
You
guys are handing out Johnny Walker Blue and pizzas and everything else. So it's not going to be – you guys have now become the concierge, I don't know. Of ACC basketball.
I floated an idea to our boss earlier this week about Jim Boeheim for the ACC tournament.
It was pretty funny.
That would tick him off, but that's neither here nor there. All right. If it happens.
Come on. No, we can't end on that.
All right. Well.
It involved the billboard.